everyone, I am the Omniscient Narrator. My name is Sarah, and today I am doing a book review of both Realmbreaker and Bladebreaker, both by Victoria Aveyard. These are both part of the same series, which I think is called Realmbreaker. I'm not 100% sure what the series is called. But yeah, let's get into it. This review will have a lot of spoilers, so if you care about hearing spoilers, don't watch this video until after you've read the books. But yes, a little bit about these books. It takes place in a place called the Ward, or the All Ward. It's a fantasy world. And this dude, Terriston, I'm not sure if I'm saying his name right. I'm not sure if I'm saying any of these characters' names right. So, sorry if I mispronounced them. But Terriston, he's trying to help a demon known as What Waits. It's kind of a demon, as I understand it, to get into the ward and basically take it over. And he does this by breaking these things called spindles, which are basically like doorways to different realms. So he's trying to open different doorways to different realms until enough of them are open that the ward just collapses so that What Waits is able to enter the ward. Now, this girl, Karain, she is the main character. She's our main protagonist. She is a daughter of a pirate. Her mother is a feared pirate, and she's always wanted to go on the ship with her mother. But her mother always makes her stay back at their hometown and just has her do things like plan out like paths for them to take and different things they can take and make preparations so that they can legally enter different ports and such. But that's not fully what Karain wants. And then one day, this man named Dom, he is he's called what is called an elder, which is an immortal person from a different realm known as Glorian. He comes with this girl named Sarasa. She is an assassin, and they come and tell her that about what Terriston is doing, and that she's the only one who can stop him because he's her uncle. And the only way he's able to be opening the spindles is because he has core blood and he has a spindle blade. They don't have a spindle blade yet, but they know where to get one from a guy named Andrew, and they have Karain. She is core blood. Now you'd be like, well, where'd she get her core blood from if this dude's her uncle? Her father dies in the prologue by Terriston. They were twins, separated at birth, and Terriston chose bad side, and not Karain, I forget his name, but her father chooses the good side. So now, yeah, they're just trying to figure out how to save the ward from this complete collapse. And of course, throughout this, we meet a few other characters, such as Sigil, Charlie, Arita, Britta, and a bunch of other cool characters. So yeah, that's what the series is about. And so now I'm going to start off with my cons of the books. Again, these are all of my pros and my cons will be having spoilers within it. So if you don't want spoilers, pause right now, read the books, and then come back here. So my first con is the lack of chemistry between Andrew and Karain. Throughout the both novels, you see them very like forced together. And it says like oh, if one of them touches the other, like oh, they feel all like warm and fuzzy, but those feelings don't seem justified. In other books, I feel like when those characters get those feelings, you're like, yes, I can see this character with this character and this causing them to feel like that. I don't feel that with Andrew and Karain. I feel like maybe that chemistry could be slowly built more instead of being so forced together so quickly. But just as it is, they don't have good chemistry. Another thing, this is also part of actually why it took me so long to make another video, is the books start off really slow, both of them. Because we have, like, it's all necessary. Everything in there is pretty necessary to setting everything up. Like, in the first book, you have them getting their group together, and that takes up at least half the book. And then you finally have them going to go try to close a spindle. And so when you finally get to they're going to go close a spindle part, that's when it gets exciting. But when you're starting at the beginning of them trying to find people, it's kind of slow. And with the second book, you have them just having finished close the first spindle, and now they're having to go deal with like some political type things before they can go and close the second spindle. And so that first part of dealing with all the political things is kind of slow. Like I said, I do think these things are very necessary to the stories, but it's kind of a slow. About halfway through each book, it picks up and you just like want to keep reading it. So that's my second con. My third one is in the second book when they close the second spindle. It was very confusing. So Coraine gets tossed from horseback into the spindle and she goes into the other realm. But that specific action, no, sorry. Well, yeah, that specific action wasn't very clearly, described well enough until, like it says, like, the horse jerks under her or something, and then suddenly, like, she's just in this realm. And she's on horseback with other people, so I at first thought, I was like, are these people here? And then they weren't there with her. So that was very confusing. And then also after that, so then she's like talking to what waits, and like she says like she cuts her hand so she draws blood, which I was like, okay, yes, she's probably gonna go try to close the spindle soon. And then suddenly she's running through it, and then something happens, and it allows it to close. But I am so confused about what it was that happened. That just wasn't written clearly enough, and I really wish it would have been written more clearer, so that I would have better had understanding of how the spindle closing actually happened. My fourth critique is that Andrew is a very two-dimensional character. He has 3 personality traits. One is he's a squire, and those are his morals that drive him. 2, T. His solution to everything, at least on an emotional level, but even also on a physical level sometimes, is, here, I'm gonna make some tea for you to help make it feel better. Like, what? And then the third one is he loves his mother. Those are his 3 main personality traits. Without those things, there's like, if you strip those things away, there's nothing to Andrew. And the squire part is a very big part of it, since that is how he grew up, but still. And then my final critique is there is a moment in the second book that is very predictable, because the same thing happens in the first book. In the first book, we have Sigil seem to betray the other companions by giving them over to, I believe it was the Ebelit government, I may be wrong, but gives them over to some sort of government, and they all think, oh, she's betrayed us, this is it, this is the end, we're gonna die, they're gonna give us over to Rita, and we're gonna get executed, and this is gonna be it, the ward's gonna fall. But then, I'm gonna quick change of events, Sigil comes and breaks them out. And you're like, yes, this is great. And so that time it was really good. But in the second book, we have a similar situation. The Amahara, which is the guild that Sarasa was not banned, kind of like disowned from, offer her place back in their guild. And she accepts it and tells them, kill Dom. And so at first I was like, whoa, what's gonna happen? And then I was like, this is probably be the same situation that happened with Sigil, where she's just lying and will kill all the Amahara and save Dom, and that is exactly what happened. So it was very predictable, and I would have, like, the overall concept of that scene was very good, and I liked it, but the way it turned out was very predictable. So that are my critiques for the books. So now let's get to my pros. My first one is the slow burn romance between Dom and Sarasa. I love it so much. These two have such good chemistry, unlike Andrew and Coraine. And so throughout all the books, like, you just want to, like, grab them by the shoulders and, like, shake them and yell at them, like, you two, like, both obviously like each other, like, just do something about it. Screw your pride, screw all that. If you like each other, just go for it. So I like that a lot. And another thing I really like that also has to do with, like, chemistry is the chemistry between Arita and Terriston. You really only see this in Arita's chapters, but they slowly gain chemistry. Like, at first, when I first was introduced, and this is particularly in the first book, particularly in the first book, they didn't really have that much chemistry. They, like, you could tell they chose to get married because it would serve both of their purposes. But in the second book, you see them trying to get a lot closer. They open up a bit to each other, which is kind of strange at first, but when you think about it, like, they have no one else to open up to, so why not each other? And so then they just start developing this chemistry, and it makes so much sense. And so when I'm in Arita's chapters, I feel so bad rooting for these two, because I'm like, they're supposed to be the villains of the story, but I want them to end up together, because they seem great together. I mean, that's just something I feel like Victoria Aveyard in general does so well, is she makes her villains likable, For example, her other series she wrote, Red Queen, which is my favorite series ever. The main villain, Maven, I am absolutely in love with that man. So she writes really likable villains, which I absolutely love. My next pro would be The Death of Rita, which happens at the very end of the second book. So Rita's chapter is, her death chapter is the last chapter of this book, and I feel like where Victoria chose to start that chapter was perfect. She started it right where she was dying. I feel like if she had started it soon, like in battle, and we see her like actually getting wounded and stuff, I feel like her death wouldn't have had as much of an impact, because throughout both books, we very rarely see Rita because she's very much a side character. She's doing things to serve the overall purpose, but otherwise she's not that important. And so you just need to give like quick little glimpses of her throughout the books to see what she's doing to help push along the plot. In the first book, I generally forgot about her a lot. In the second book, though, her second to last chapter was actually quite early on in the book, and it ends in such a cliffhanger that throughout the rest of the book, I'm thinking, like, when am I going to see her again? When am I going to see her again? So that's a little disappointing, but also, like, it's disappointing as a reader, but as a writer, I am, like, this is something I would totally love to do, because I just like doing that to my readers of, she never fully explains what happens after that moment, between the last moment the second to last chapter, what happens then, how that ends, and then next time we see her. We never get really what's in between that, and I honestly won't be surprised if we don't get that, since most of the important players during that time died. So that was, so seeing her death like that was very good, of starting right when she's dying and not, like, getting into the battle and everything, because then it was just going to draw it out. And just by the time we get to her death, I was going to be bored, because I don't have much of an emotional connection to this character, since I very rarely see her. But starting right with her death, I was able to be held captivated the entire time, and I could also really see the way that this emotionally affected Dom, which was very important to see. So my next, like, well done is having the heroes fail at something. They fail at closing the third spindle, and I think that is amazing, because in books, I feel like so often, like, they go to do something and they succeed. Like, yes, they will have troubles along the way, but they succeed. And in this one, they, like, try. They go and they face troubles, but those troubles are too big and bad, so they have to retreat, and actually end up splitting them all up. So we don't know where everyone is right now. We don't know exactly who all's alive and who's not. We have a good idea for some characters. But yeah, I just really liked the having them fail to make it seem just more realistic. Like, it's a fantasy book, but having it seem more realistic that way was really good. My next, like, really like of this book was the world. It was so well developed, like, the politics between different countries, the way, like, the royalty interacted, the way, like, trade routes was so good. Like, that just really deepened it really increased the depth of the world, and it was so well done and well introduced, and just, like, the past wars and stuff, like, it was all amazing, the history, like, this felt like a real world, and this is really hard to do as a writer, because it takes so much time and commitment, but Victoria gave it that time and commitment to make it this beautiful, and she also integrates that world building into the novel so beautifully, and I love it, because it's not like it's, like, info jumping or anything. Like, she's bringing things up about the world as they are relevant to the situation then and there. So yeah, my last, pro from these books are, there's just some amazing lines that I loved. I found them hilarious, or just, like, I'm like, wow, this is a really good play on words. Like, I really liked what was it? It was something is as low as his morals. Or I think it was he was as low as his morals, and I just love that. That was gorgeous. So yeah, it had both books had some amazing lines that made me laugh, made me feel, and I loved it. So yeah, overall, I gave these books 4 out of 5 stars. Both of them each got 4 out of 5 stars, primarily just because of how slow the starts of each of them were. But yeah, I really hope you enjoyed this review. I really recommend you go check out these books because they are so good. Yeah, and that's all. Have a good day. Bye!